folks, I want you to bear with me. I want to demonstrate to you why I've been talking for months and why I'm explaining that this administration is an anti-American administration from sea to shining sea, with open borders, with its war on people of faith, with its war on parents. It is utterly rogue and out of control, and it is filled with filthy, lying, left-wing scum. And others who will do anything they can on behalf of and for this administration. This hatred for Israel is a reflection of their hatred for America. Israel shares our values, our faiths, in the middle of a hellhole filled with terrorists who want to slaughter them and slaughter us. Now, there was an accidental bombing that took place in Gaza. And apparently, the Israelis accidentally hit a location where there are, quote-unquote, workers, I guess humanitarian workers, people who are trying to feed the Gazans. And immediately, the Israelis apologized, said it was an error. Unfortunately, war has these problems and so forth. So here you have an ally, supposedly the United States, who has seized on this. Seized on it. From the Secretary of State to John Kirby today at his briefing to viciously attack the state of Israel. And I want to play some of this for you, but before I do, I want to read something to you to remind you about it. Less than 2 years ago, CBS News, a U.S. drone strike killed an aid worker in Afghanistan. Many of his family and colleagues still stranded there. It killed 10 civilians. You remember that, Mr. Producer? They sent a drone to get a terrorist, and instead, they killed 10 civilians. 7 of them were children in Afghanistan. It was the last act of our military under Biden. A U.S. airstrike in the final days of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan intended for an ISIS-K terrorist instead killed the aid worker, Zamar al-Mahdi, and members of his family. After initially calling it a righteous strike and claiming no civilians were killed, the Pentagon admitted its mistake and promised to resettle members of Ahmadi's family and employees of the aid organization he worked for. This was an aid organization trying to help the people who were starving, who were hungry, who had been abused by the Taliban. They order a drone strike that kills the person in charge of the aid organization and his family, 7 of whom were children. 7 of whom were children. So we know from our own experience, certainly Blinken does, and the Biden administration, that mistakes happen in war. It's a war zone. But now I want you to listen to John Kirby today. And what I find contemptible, there's not a single news organization in America, not one, that has pointed this out today. Not one. Here's John Kirby at the White House today. Cut 3, go.
We were outraged to learn of an IDF strike that killed a number of civilian humanitarian workers yesterday from the World Central Kitchen, which has been relentless in working to get food to those who are hungry in Gaza and, quite frankly, around the world. We send our deepest condolences to their families and loved ones. We've seen the comments from Prime Minister Netanyahu and from the Israeli Defense Forces about their commitment to conduct an investigation. As we understand it, a preliminary investigation has been completed today and presented to the Army Chief of Staff, and we'll obviously look to see what they discover in this preliminary one. But we expect a broader investigation to be conducted and to be done so in a swift and comprehensive manner. We hope that those findings will be made public and that there is appropriate accountability held.
Mm-hmm. Hamas is slaughtering civilians as I speak, Palestinian civilians, all through the Middle East. Haiti's on fire. Millions and millions of people being slaughtered, raped, butchered. But the White House spokesman is focused on this. It's an opportunity to exploit, to undermine, and to attack the state of Israel. Obviously, this was a mistake. But Blinken even goes further. Blinken, who John McCain said is a very dangerous man. Blinken attacks Israel more for an accident than he does Iran for its surrogates killing 3 American soldiers. I want you to listen to this from our Secretary of State. Cut 1, go.
But it is, simply put, insufficient. It is not enough to meet the needs of the children, the women, the men in Gaza who remain caught in a horrific crossfire of Hamas's making. So in our conversations with the Israeli government, including just last week when the defense minister was in Washington, and just yesterday when we were on a video conference with Israeli counterparts, we impressed again upon them the imperative of now surging and sustaining assistance, and not only getting it into Gaza, but within Gaza, getting it to everyone who needs it, including in the north, where, as you know, the conditions are the most challenged.
So he wants to turn the Israeli army into the Red Cross. While Hamas is still there with thousands of terrorists, they're getting weapons from Iran through Syria. He knows all this. They place no obligation on the enemy, our enemy, the terrorists who've attacked the United States. And now the Israeli soldiers need to be delivering food and water and so forth and so on throughout Gaza. Not a word there, not a word about Hamas's responsibility or their buddy Qatar, the buddy meaning Blinken's, who funds all this. No effort to stop any funding of Iran by the United States government. Funding of UNRWA. Oh, yes, U.S. isn't funding it, but they're asking European countries to fund it. And so the Israelis are here and say, wait a minute. We got to get this war over with. They only have so many troops, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very small army and a very small population. But it gets worse. He's not done. Notice he never holds a press conference and condemns Iran or North Korea or China and so forth. Notice, he doesn't hold a press conference about what Hezbollah is doing. No words to Hamas about slaughtering their own people. But it gets worse. Cut 2, go.
The victims of yesterday's strike join a record number of humanitarian workers who've been killed in this particular conflict. These people are heroes. They run into the fire, not away from it. They show the best of what humanity has to offer when the going really gets tough. They have to be protected. We shouldn't have a situation where people who are simply trying to help their fellow human beings are themselves at grave risk.
So his implication there is the Israelis are killing them. Listen to the ambiguity also. What about Hamas? And why would the Israelis want to kill humanitarian workers? So the United States can keep trashing them? That is Israel? Let me be clear. If Israel wanted to blow Gaza off the face of the earth, and it does not, and it will not, it could. Putin keeps threatening that that's what he would do to his enemies. Iran threatens when it gets the weapon it will. North Korea threatens. Israel does not. Israel's the only country in the Middle East that has that capacity. And there have been experts on and on. This gentleman Spencer, who will be on my show on Saturday, from West Point, an expert on military strategy, says the Israeli army, the IDF, has conducted itself like no other army on the face of the earth in the history of mankind. None. Go ahead.
We've spoken directly to the Israeli government about this particular incident. We've urged a swift, a thorough, and impartial investigation to understand
They don't need you to tell them that. They've already started one. They already did. And so now this is drama. So now he's coming out, he's making these statements. More people are being slaughtered on our southern border tonight than were killed in this terrible accident, effectively. More people are being slaughtered in 5 minutes in most of the rest of the world than here. The Israelis said it was an accident. They take responsibility for it. Then he blames them for all these other horrors in Gaza when it comes to these workers and so forth. We know Hamas is a terrorist organization. We know Israel is not. And this is the sort of stuff that is spreading anti-Semitism in our own country, Jew hatred in our own country, by Blinken, by Kirby. And it's getting worse and worse and worse, and we, the people in this country, are going to pay the price for this. Now he has positioned this accident as Israelis not wanting to give food and aid to the Gazans, as too many humanitarian workers being killed, presumably he's implying by Israel, which is nonsense. No pressure on Egypt to open its border? None. None. Let's go on.
And as we have throughout this conflict, we've impressed upon the Israelis the absolute imperative of doing more to protect innocent civilian lives, be they Palestinian children, women, and men, or be they aid workers, as well as to get more humanitarian assistance to more people more effectively.
Mm-hmm. Right. The man that handed Afghanistan over to the Taliban, Blinken. The man who was dealing with Iran, selling out our country, and Iran will have nukes that we pay for. This one incident, sad, terrible incident of 7 workers, aid workers being killed, is now front and center for the Biden administration, Blinken, and this loudmouth Kirby. It's as if Hamas has written the script. But not a single reporter, tonight as I speak, or during the day, and I posted this, says to Mr. Blinken and Mr. Kirby, can I ask you a question? Less than 2 years ago, you guys ordered a drone strike on what you said was a terrorist. You celebrated it. You said it was a righteous strike, quote unquote. Then it turns out that you hit the head of a major aid organization and killed his entire family, 7 of whom are children. So can't you understand that in war, as horrible as these things happen, they're impossible to completely prevent? Given your record, Mr. Kirby, given Mr. Biden's record and Mr. Blinken's record and Mr. Austin's record? So tell me something, America. Why hasn't a single reporter asked the question? Why hasn't a single reporter answered the question? The U.S. government has resettled 11 of the 144 individuals who were affected by the drone strike. 11 out of the 144 as of August 2022. And the others are represented by the ACLU. They're representing Ahmadi's family members.